My name is Janelle Hatch, and thank you so much for joining us today for the latest in our food literacy webinar series. And the topic today is growing together. And I want to get started right away because we have a really exciting lineup and want to make sure that we hear for as long as we can from all of the great panelists joining us today. So as I mentioned, this is one in a series called Good Food for All webinar series, and it's brought to you by the Food Literacy Working Group of the Good Food Network and CR FAIR, the Capital Region Food and Agriculture Initiatives Roundtable. And I'm so happy that so many people were able to join us today. It is a webinar, so everyone coming in is on mute today, but we still do want to hear from you. So as we're hearing from our speakers, as Linda's speaking, and I'll introduce you to our other speakers as well, please do write any questions that you have in either the chat or the Q&A box. And if we don't manage to circle around and get to all of the questions at the end of our webinar today, we will definitely make sure to post resources and answers to your questions when we post the recording of this webinar on the CR FAIR website. So please do post any questions that you have. I wanted to say a big thank you today to Em from CR FAIR, as well as Lisa from Growing Together for helping, and Jean and Sonia for helping to put together the lineup that we have for you all today. So before we get started, I did want to appreciate that we are meeting together on the lands of the Coast Salish peoples. I am a white settler on the lands of the Lekwungen speaking peoples of the Songhees and Esquimalt Nation. And I am so grateful to be able to live, work, and play here on the lands and waters of this beautiful place. So I encourage all of that we join together on. So just moving us forward here, I just wanted to cue you quickly before I introduce our speakers for today that our next webinar will be happening 2 weeks from today, Wednesday, June 3rd from 4 to 5 p.m. And it's on eating well on a budget is going to be our topic, and we might be doing some cooking together, having some great guests again joining us. So please do put that into your calendar for 2 weeks from today. So our first guest speaker is Linda Gilkeson, and I'm so happy that she was able to join us today. Linda is a gardening expert. She's joining us from her home on Salt Spring Island, and she has over 30 years of experience growing in our region. And she is a well-known best-selling author, educator, and gardening consultant. So we're so fortunate to have her joining us today. And if you do want any further information on her, a complete bio, you can check out her website, which is lindagilkeson.ca. And following Linda today, we're joined today by Lisa Small from Growing Together. And Growing Together, it's a collaborative of over 15 different community organizations in the Capital Region, working together to help support people in growing their own food. We'll also be joined by City of Victoria's Food Systems Coordinator, Alex Harned, and she'll be talking to us about the Get Growing Victoria project, which is growing and distributing about 75,000 seedlings this season. And then we'll also hear from Tiffany Joseph of the Squamish Indigenous Foods Initiative, which opened up a granting program to support Indigenous families in planting gardens as a response to the recent COVID pandemic. So stick with us. Lots to come. Now, without any further ado, I would like to turn it over to Linda.
Thank you. All right, this is great. It's wonderful seeing faces to go with these names of people that I have only met by email, like Tiffany and Em and Janelle. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen here and see if this will work. Nope. Wrong screen. There we are. Screen sharing has stopped. The window is closed. Okay, let's try this again. Gee, it all worked earlier.
We see it now.
There we are. This week in the vegetable garden. Is everybody, I assume everyone can see it since it looks good on my screen.
Yes.
I had to put a bragging picture up right off immediately. I know that zucchini is not everyone's favorite thing, but I go to great lengths to try and beat my personal best on when I'm eating a zucchini, and I picked one on May 1st this year. Now, that was only because I have a greenhouse and I could start them early and grow 2 plants in really big buckets. But this is my May 7th harvest this year, and I wanted to show you this picture because this is the garden meeting, the summer meets the winter. The zucchini in the picture and the lettuce were seeded this spring, but the cauliflower and the purple sprouting broccoli and the scallions and the chard were all plants that have been in the garden all winter and are being harvested in the spring. So there is no gap. So I just wanted to show you what we can do in this region. So what are we doing right now? Well, the middle blue screen here, the April-May, you could still be seeding any of these things now. We have a very long growing season. Now, the rest of Canada planted their whole gardens this last weekend. I mean, the May long weekend is traditionally when, anybody in Montreal or Toronto or in any of the central regions plants. But we can seed earlier than that. But there's plenty of time now. If you start anything in this list under April, May, all of it has time to mature. And
Linda, sorry to jump in. It's Janelle here. There's just some people who are not able to see what it is that you're speaking to on the screen. So
they can't see the screen.
One moment.
Okay.
Some people are able to see it and some not. So we're just trying to figure out what that's all about.
Good. Well, maybe while you're figuring that out, I'll talk about peas because you really don't need to see a screen to talk about peas. I have peas down in any month of the year, starting in March, going to the end of June. So, but don't just seed your peas once, seed them every month. And you'll have peas into October that way. So peas, more peas, and more peas. So how are we doing, Janelle? Are we able to see this?
Yeah, some people are coming in saying that they're seeing it okay. So
yeah, it says
let's just keep pushing forward.
Okay.
And we'll definitely post the slides following if anyone can't see them.
Okay, so we're really in this bottom little line on my chart here. We're at the mid-May to early June section. Again, more peas are listed, as you'll see. But we can be putting out sweet corn, beans, more cauliflower, because of course we could have had a lot of cauliflower planted earlier. And it is plenty warm enough now around here to plant out peppers and tomatoes. I think it's warm enough to plant melons and sweet basil. I did that today. We'll see. This is the thing about May. May is a very tricky month. We had a heat wave last week, not this last weekend, the weekend before. Some areas that are more around north of Vancouver and stuff, they will have had frost in some days this month. So it's a little bit tricky. I just wanted to show you, this is a garden of a friend of mine that's mentoring her tenant. And this is his very first garden in his whole life. And he's having some pretty good success. The carrots unfortunately died in the heat wave. They were in here because he didn't actually realize that they could die if exposed to the temperatures we had 10 days ago. So he's had to reseed them. But, he's coming along. He's got kale and lettuce And they're growing very fast right now. And anybody that's put plants in by now will see how quickly they're growing with all the rain. I actually wait and don't seed a lot until in the last couple of weeks, just from the middle of May onwards. And I have a lot of trouble with birds. And so this is a very messy, ad hoc, keeping the birds out kind of effort. You can see that a lot of the plants are now big enough. I can thin, there's chard in here that can be thinned or transplanted. But we've got plenty of time to start things still. And the very first slide I showed you, you can just see how much I'm already eating out of the garden anyway. So I'm not really in a big hurry for the things that are being sown here. I did want to put a reminder in though that people sowing carrots now, especially around the Victoria, to cover those carrots before the seeds come up with some kind of insect netting or floating row cover. Because there is an insect called the carrot rust fly that more or less attacks your carrots immediately. The second they come up, they're susceptible to this insect. And the insect burrows, you can see one little tiny white maggot there at the tip of my pointer. They burrow through the carrots and, you know, it may just be a little bit of damage or it may be a lot of damage. But do protect your carrots. We have no other control other than to just prevent them from being able to reach the carrots. And it actually works extremely well. If you use the products that are meant for this to cover plants, then plenty of light, irrigation water, everything gets through it. If you're using something like curtain material that sort of looks like this, the plants will probably not grow at all because they just don't get enough light. But the insect netting is products like Bug Out, which a lot of nurseries have, Enviro Mesh, Protect Net, those are the kinds of names. But if you have floating row cover and it's intact and doesn't have holes in it, you can certainly use that for carrots too. The soil is warm enough to sprout beans now in the soil. I still don't put them in the soil. That was a friend's garden. And because I keep getting this, if you get beans coming up and this happens to your beans, it's these miserable little creatures called pill bugs. So I still always start my beans ahead of time in vermiculite, even if it's warm enough to germinate. So you can try both ways and see what works for you. This is my beans that were just set out about a week ago. They started in vermiculite and they're shooting up the poles already. So they're pretty happy. We can certainly put out corn if you germinated it indoors. Corn, most of the varieties that we see that are available to us for gardening are really need very warm soil to germinate, 18 to 21 degrees. And so I start about early May, I will start my first batch of corn indoors. So once it's planted out, it doesn't have to be 18 to 21 degrees. It's just for seed germination. And this picture also shows how I am drowning in chard right now. Got any chard recipes, everybody? This is all chard that went through the winter, is growing madly. But this is my first planting of corn here. The next planting will be in this empty spot. And then the third planting, which will be about the end of June, will be where I've taken the chard out because it's finished. As I said earlier, tomatoes can go out. Tomatoes in pots. Tomatoes do well in pots. If you're really short on space, rather than put your tomatoes in the beds, you can put them in pots or put them in beds. Squash can go out now. These are my two braggy zucchinis. They were a little bit unhappy about the cold weather they had after they were planted out, but they'll make it. Zucchini's pretty tough. I just, I had an inquiry the other day about somebody wondering why they didn't have their garlic scapes yet. The garlic is growing it's doing a lot of vegetative growth right now, but in a couple weeks you will see these curly stalks coming out of the middle, and they get quite tall on the hardneck garlic. And then cut those. They're fantastic for stir fries, and you can make pesto out of them, do all sorts of things. But they're coming soon to a garlic patch near you. I want to touch on the fact that we're now arriving at the windows of planting time for crops we are actually going to eat in the wintertime. Basically, we can plant everything now that we are going to eat this summer. All of those plants that were in the earlier slides. But now, this is the period when we can plant Brussels sprouts. This is from seed, winter cabbage, parsnips you could have sown earlier, but if you haven't done it, you need to do it by now. These are plants that will be in the garden for next winter. And as you go down this, you'll see mid-June to late June, we're going to be planting broccoli and cauliflower. In July, we can plant carrots, beets, all sorts of things. Now, these are dates that are the last date. You can't really get away with planting carrots past the first week of July or 10th of July because they just don't get big enough. As I say up here, the plants need enough time. They need growing time. They need enough hours of sunlight and days of warmth to get to full size before winter. And it's actually not winter, it's actually by the end of October. And October is not a great growing month. It's cool and the days are short. So if you miss a week in July, that's not like, you're not going to make that up with another week in October, even if it's warm for October. So these planting dates, I've honed them over 30 years, literally, and they work for everybody. You might, in a really warm garden, be able to plant a little later, but try these dates first. So right now, by the end of around the end of this month, this is when we would be seeding some of these things. This is a fantastic cabbage called January King. I love it, but it's these are the cabbages that take 120 to 180 days to mature these big heavy heads. So you've got to get them in the ground now. And just a little note, seed situation is fairly desperate at this point. But if you haven't got seeds for the winter varieties, do what you can to get them right now because you're going to need seed over the whole summer for planting. And, you know, I just buzzed by that chart here, although I know you're going to be able to see this video later. This planting chart that I'm showing you is on my website, and it's a PDF. You can just print it down. It's just a little quarter sheet. Stick it on your refrigerator, and then it reminds you all of these planting windows. I have one on my fridge. You know, after 30 years, I still can't remember what to plant when. And I do have an email there for reminder. If you want to join my email list, it's just a reminder that goes out to talk about what's going on at the time. We will be arriving soon at planting the broccoli and cauliflower for winter. And just a little heads up, they are not the same varieties as the summer varieties. Galleon is basically the only overwintering cauliflower left, and red spear is an excellent purple sprouting broccoli. But just make sure when you're getting set up to seed these things for next winter's harvest, make sure you've got the varieties that are either very frost hardy, like very frost hardy lettuce can just freeze on the spot and thaw out. But there's lots of lettuce that isn't frost hardy, and make sure you have the right winter cauliflower and broccoli. That was one of the heads of cauliflower I picked a few weeks ago. I love cauliflower. Now, a little tip about seeding. You saw that there was planting windows all summer. A little tip here is the soil can be too warm for vegetables to germinate. So you've got to, once you've sown the bed, watered it really well, then shade it with something. You know, maybe use a little more soil to cover it, push the seed down in good contact, but shade it. It can just even be old beach towels or something, but as soon as the first shoots are showing out of the seed, you've got to uncover it, however. But yeah, we can end up not being able to start things from seed if the soil is very warm. And then if it continues, if it's a warm spell, or you've got little cabbage family plants coming up in July, you really do need to babysit those. They need shade. So anything you can do, you can turn over little, you know, plant trays, or you can get shade cloth. People make all kinds of little lath house shelters, wood shelters. So just get some shade on those plants. These are baby plants, and their roots are very close to the surface of the soil. And put your hand on the soil one day, a wet soil on a day in July, and you can just see that they are parboiling. So they need shade, and they'll need a little bit of mulch as soon as you can possibly put it on the soil. This was my baby garden 10 days ago. It was an emergency. Look at all of these plants. Even the squash plants were fading away because it was just, you know, too hot for 3 days. So put anything you can into practice. I had big pots. I had seedling trays. You know, I use a bed sheet if you have to. Things die from heat, whereas they don't die from not getting sun for 2 days. They just slow down. Now, a few notes on dense planting, and then we're done here. Some interplanting. You can Most people are growing in beds rather than in rows in a big garden, and you can probably use a lot more of that space than you think. People do get kind of set on the idea that you have to grow in rows. Cover the whole surface of your bed with plants. Now, but dense doesn't mean crowded, overcrowded. You see how thickly these have been sown. These have to be pulled up and spaced out to where that'd be like one plant in one of these. This is chicken wire, by the way. It's a great little template for planting. So eventually you need to thin to that kind of spacing, or the plants will just stop each other from growing. And you'll always end up having to space out chard, because chard and beets have multiple seeds inside that little thing that you plant. And so they always have several coming up in one spot. I want to talk about my favorite interplanting trick here. This is a picture from a previous year. The plants that have the yellow circles are green sprouting broccoli, which is a fantastic summer broccoli. But the plants get huge. By July, every inch of that bed will be covered with these 5 huge plants. But before that happens, I am growing a whole crop of cauliflower and a whole bunch of spring lettuce. So, the lettuce will be harvested first and the cauliflower will be gone. And by the time that's all done, the broccoli just has to be on that spacing because it's enormous, but I can use that space for all kinds of things before that ever happens. This is this summer. This was some very early cabbage that I have sowed. This was about a week ago, the picture. And then here's the next batch of cabbage family. I've got lettuce all through. I'm also putting flowers in my gardens a lot more this year. But this was last night, and the cabbage is really, that lettuce has to be picked. I'll be picking all this lettuce tonight. So that's the thing about, interplanting like this. It works great until you need the space. And then lettuce is wonderful for interplanting because you can pick at any time. But it works between strawberry plants. It works between your later Brussels sprouts. You can put radishes among your carrots, and by the time the carrots have come up, the radishes are just about done. Here's an example of interplanting where I've got peas that were planted in March in the back, peas that were planted in April in the front. And right here, they haven't come up yet, were peas I planted 2 nights ago. And in front is lettuce and radishes. The lettuce and radishes will all be done fairly soon. And the peas, I will have a succession of peas. And as they disappear, I'll put something else in behind that when those older peas are gone. And one last tip for interplanting in July, if you're growing cucumbers, they're very low growing, but they ramble and they need a lot of space unless you're going to trellis them. I open up little places in my cucumber bed and put in, this is one of those winter cabbages and winter broccoli. Those plants are not actually very big until October, and even then they're not that big because they do a lot of their growing in the spring. So they enjoy having this living mulch around their roots. Happy gardening, everybody. That's just my website there if you want to print out that little planting chart for winter. And if you do put questions in the chat, I will try to answer them later. There we go.
Thank you, Linda. That was very inspiring. Thank you for sharing all those pictures of your garden with us.
Oh yeah, I love it.
And I do want to point people as well to your website, because I've been on there a number of times this year and looking at the various resources that you have. Thank you for making so much available to people to help all of us with our growing. Greatly appreciated. Okay, so hopefully we'll have time to answer a few of the questions that I have seen coming through the chat. We'll save that to the end, and we will see about passing it over now if Lisa would like to join me here. Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us today. And I look forward to hearing about growing together. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Janelle. Thanks, Linda. Yeah, so my name's Lisa Small, and I'm a coordinator at Growing Together. And what Growing Together is it's a collaboration of about 20 community organizations that are working together to help support people in growing their own food. And we have a landing page, our website, which is growingfood-together.com. And on that page, we are adding things. At the moment, we are working on a video series where we are having people, experienced gardeners, post videos that other new gardeners can look at to get to find out more information about different things relating to gardening. We also have a number of community projects that are featured on our website, including My Fed Farm, which is supporting about 500 families and laid off workers with home gardening kits. We also have the Young Agrarians UMAP Garden Share, which is really awesome. It has it's a map where people can list the available spaces that they have, be it like their backyards, their front yards, their boulevard gardens, and other people who are looking for spaces can see if there's one near them and they can get in touch about gardening it. We also have a mentorship program that helps to match up new gardeners with experienced gardeners so that they have someone to ask their questions to. I just want to mention one project which is happening really soon, which is a project for seniors in Saanich. We've had money from a really generous donor that's being used to grow seedlings that are specifically for Saanich seniors. And these plants will be going out to them for free so that they have more access to grow food. There's also still some room in this program. So if you know some seniors in Saanich that would love to get their hands on some starts, they can find out about that on our website and sign up for that. And yeah, it's a really collaborative effort, and there's a lot of different parties involved. And we also want to give a huge thanks to the Rapid Relief Fund, which is really helping to support this program. And I'm going to pass this off to Alex Harned, the Food Systems Coordinator at the City of Victoria, who's working closely with us as well. Alex?
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I was trying to figure out the video. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Harned. I'm the Food Systems Coordinator of the city, as Lisa said. Thank you so much, Linda, for that really informative and just beautiful presentation on how to garden. It's inspiring as we get the seedlings distribution program ready to launch. This program will be launched on May 25th, so starting next week. Can everyone hear me? I'm just seeing Lisa's frozen face, so I'm not sure.
Yes, you're good.
Okay, sounds good. I wasn't sure. Thank you. And so this program specifically is we are distributing 75,000 seedlings, herb and veggie seedlings that we are growing in the greenhouse with the city in the nursery. And we'll be distributing these out to, we're partnering with 30 different organizations currently. To be the distribution partners for this program. So we've been using the analogy as the city is the shoulder of this program and our community partners are the elbow. They're like doing the heavy lifting for us and the people are the hands. So we as a city don't really have the capacity. It's just me as the food systems coordinator to be taking all of the orders. And we know our community partners have these established relationships with their communities. And so we wanted to ensure that we were just empowering those communities and being able to provide the seedlings to the people who need them most. And so we've been prioritizing communities that have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 and working with community partners who are already serving these folks. So in terms of, I'll just give kind of an overview. The selection includes a variety of cucumber, zucchini, squash, cabbage, broccoli, mustard greens, chard, kale, basil, tomatoes, parsley, and lettuce. So that's a variety of 17 veggies and herb starts. that are easily grown by the novice gardener and suitable for a variety of locations, such as garden beds in yards or container gardening on decks and balconies. We sourced 100,000 seeds from Southern Vancouver Island farms through the BC Seed Co-op, as well as Saanich Organics and ALM Organic Farms. So that was great to support local. And again, this program prioritizes and includes, but is not limited to, those who have experienced loss of work, Indigenous communities, people who are immunocompromised, people living with a disability, seniors, at-risk youth, families in need, and people who identify as food insecure. The programs we're currently partnering with are the Greater Victoria School Districts with Life Cycles Project Society and Farm to School BC. So if you are a family within the Greater Victoria School District, you're eligible to receive free access to free veggie plants and educational materials. These seedlings will be distributed between Monday and Thursday from May 25th to June 11th at 4 sites. So over 2,000 families from 47 schools will have access to these seedlings. We're really excited about that. I can share the link where there's more information. We're partnering with the Food Eco District as well. So they're running a program called My Fed Farm. So in partnership with Topsoil, they're offering a free startup food garden kit to 500 families in need. So again, I can link the info there. If you'd like to sign up for one of those, they still have some spots available. We're working with Sierra Fair's Youth Food Network to connect program with youth who are facing obstacles to access healthy and locally grown food, as well as partnering with already established initiatives like the Squanto Initiative that Tiffany will speak to, Songhees Nation. We're working with the Aboriginal Coalition to End Homelessness. We're working with VIHA. So it's really great to partner with all these amazing organizations who are doing this work. And we're just happy to provide these seedlings to people who'd like to garden. And of course, our partnership with Sierra Fair for Growing Together, they're really helping us with and collaborating on the education component of this program. And so hopefully on Monday, when the seedlings are being distributed, we're going to be releasing a poster that has a QR code, and you can click that and it'll link to the Growing Together website. We're going to have seedlings descriptions for how to plant them, so how to transplant them, watering, where to plant. So really trying to ensure people are getting all the information that they need to feel confident in their growing endeavors. So I think that's about all for me, and I'll pass it along to Tiffany to talk about the Indigenous Food Initiative.
Rachel Hala, Heiska Alex for sharing all that information, and Heiska Linda for sharing all that food visually. 1 second, I'm multitasking, so I need to not do that. Can you all see me and hear me? Okay, thank you. So Shkonanital Indigenous Foods Initiative is an Indigenous-led initiative. The way we make decisions is led by people who we serve within Saanich, Lekwungen, Suk, and New Channel territories, which is limited to Pachudat in New Channel territory. These are the nations that the CRD covers with their border. And so in response to COVID-19, we created a Fill Your Basket grant, which brought in applications from over 50 people. And we also created the Community Harvest Grant, which was available to community organizations as well as large family groups. So when I say that, an example is there's a family in Pakwachin, and there's at least 3 generations I know of that will be working in that garden. So with 3 generations to feed, we wanted to be able to support people to meet that need of their family. Basically I anticipated that not only because food was being wiped out of the grocery stores, that the price of food would go higher. So we wanted to ensure that our communities could have the foods they need to be able to feed their family and stay close to home while we were all in this uh, stay-at-home situation. And what the grant was allowing people to do is buy anything towards starting a garden. But we also had a pre-selected list of indigenous plants that would be used to treat symptoms related to COVID symptoms. So respiratory, sore throat. So licorice fern is a well-known sore throat medicine. Cachmint. Cachmint is what we all call it in Steinich, Lekwungen, and Zuk. And also people on the mainland who have been able to connect to that plant. And it's also known as bare stem desert parsley if you were to go to Spanish Native Plants to buy it. A lot of indigenous plants have been given words with Indian in them, so it's also known as Indian consumption plant. The reason I share that is because whilst that's a racist term, it has the word consumption in it, which speaks to how our ancestors and our elders used this plant to treat tuberculosis. And so that's what all the plants that we chose were meant to help empower our families within these nations, is to remember that we've survived several pandemics, and we've actually survived germ warfare. So I'm sure everyone knows that the smallpox pandemic was not just a pandemic, but we were targeted with smallpox blankets to attempt to wipe our people out. We also were, with everyone kind of feeling the stress of having to lock down at home, Indigenous peoples of all of Canada and North America have been confined to reserves for a very long time. It was actually illegal to leave the reserve in Canada, reservation in the United States, for a period of time. And that had ripple effects for years to come. And it wasn't just that kind of one piece of policy and legislation that kept us confined. But through that, the tuberculosis spread quite quickly through our communities. And so whilst it's like a heavy thing to consider, it's also really important for our people to remember we survived through our medicines. And so we wanted to bring those close to people and close to their homes, because we're reliving this experience of having to be confined. We're a little bit more used to it than a lot of people. But we're still impacted, and we want to make sure that if there was anyone to bring the virus to our communities, that we would have what we need to protect ourselves and feel safe and secure. Yeah, I think that's most of what I want to share about the grant and the gardening and how we designed it. Since then, we've had plenty of people starting. So we helped with making garden boxes for people. There's a lot of people who have mobility needs to be met. So this really helps them. There's also tons of small kids, like tons of toddlers. There's quite a few people who are expecting as well. So we're thinking, okay, well, they're going to need those boxes because they're going to want their elderly family members to be able to have a place to rest. And then they're also going to want the toddlers to have a place that they can kind of lean. I think I should have mentioned also is that we included indigenous berries. So there's woodland strawberry, coastal strawberry, thimbleberry, salmonberry, and blackcap raspberry for a lot of people. Sandwich Native Plants did run out of blackcap raspberry in the 1 gallon pots, I believe. So we ended up just sticking to the berries I named, but I'm really excited of what we can help people do with all these foods. The berries we chose to basically keep people's vitamins up, the vitamin C and things like that. And I know that the leaves for a lot of the berry plants are used to treat women specific or those with wombs, the health there. Like menstrual concerns, and also prenatal and even postnatal in some cases, treating those things. So our foods are always medicines, which is really an empowering and inspiring thing for me in my learning about our plants. Is there anything else I should share? We've had community members who built those boxes that I mentioned. And there's one of the community gardens that are going up is a few grandmothers. They're all sisters. I guess is one way we could describe it in English, but that's how they're probably like sisters. Some are sisters, some are cousins, but yeah. Is there anything else? Thank you to the City of Victoria for providing us with the veggie starts. There's a lot of people who their experience with harvesting plants has been out on the land, so gardening is really new to them, so this has made it a lot easier. And I think I'm really excited that people will be able to be eating food that is fresh right in their front and backyards. And all those little babies that are forming in the people right now are going to be growing up with highly nutritious veggies. I think that's all I'll say for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiffany. Heichka.
Nice go.
I just wanted to point out too that it looks like M posted in the chat the link to donate money. Yeah, to help support more gardens being put in.
Yeah, there's a donee who's put forward that they'll match up to $1,000, and since that post went up, we've started fundraising over 600 for them to match. So hopefully in the next couple of days, $400 more dollars can be donated at least for them to match that $1,000.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah, I think I'm gonna share my screen here with everyone. I'm not sure if people can see this. Tiffany, can you see it? You want to give me a thumbs up if you can see it? Okay. Yeah, so we just to kind of close off this very, all these great conversations about projects that are happening, of which there are many. Like I feel that this is just touching on the surface of all the different projects. I wanted to ask this question, and maybe if people feel that they want to share their thoughts in the chat box, we'd love to hear, and I'm sure other people would love to post. And I'll also ask this question to Tiffany and Alex or others here on our panel, Linda, anyone who wants to chime in. So how do we sustain the interest? So considering everything that's happening now, a huge number of people getting interested in growing food, people being concerned about the state of our food systems, how do we sustain that interest in growing food post-pandemic? and also what is our vision for the future of our local food systems here. Tiffany smiling, you want to jump in?
Sure. It just felt like it was like just me on the screen. So I was like, it's going to come to me. How do we sustain interest in growing food? I think us sharing our interest in growing food is a way, at this point in time, like what made me interested is Sartlip garden program that started years ago, and I was living in Sartlip, and it's okay, you can take that. And seeing that people were interested, and love you too. I'm just answering a question. Can I finish answering the question? Thanks. Just continuing to show our interest. There's about, how many people are watching you right now?
You got 54 and plus.
Yeah, you got about 54 people watching you right now. And I think, like, for me personally, what I think is the one thing that seems to impact people is like life changes. Obviously, for some people, the pandemic has made a life change that they're able to be home a bit more, and that's why they're able to garden. And so if people feel like they won't be able to be at home as much, they might feel like they're not able to garden, which is why I do promote indigenous berrying plants, the shrubs. They are perennials, so even if you get them established, the most you might have to do is some watering so that they produce more berries than you would have if you didn't water them. So they'd be low maintenance. And my kids, they don't like they're really picky eaters, but they'll eat bowls and bowls of blueberries. So it's something that kids often really love.
I didn't see my little place to put my little blue hand up, so I haven't put my icon up. I'm not sure that it's going to be very hard at all to sustain interest in growing food post-pandemic, simply because the interest in growing food has been going up exponentially for years. And this, yes, we have a bump right now, but I don't think a lot of people go back. Once they start growing food, they get the garden organized, and then they talk to their neighbors and then their relatives, and the kids grow up with it. It's been going, expanding very rapidly for years. And so probably not so much sustaining the interest is going to be important as sustaining the support for information if you run into trouble, or making sure things are available, or making sure that you can grow things in your front yard and the subdivision you're in isn't going to say you can't do it, or some of these things that might get in the way, because I think the interest is already there, and I'm not sure that that's going to go back. I don't think that's going to be the problem. It's going to be support, the ability to do it, of people that are interested.
Yeah, thanks. I think I agree with that. And I think the learning how to support new gardeners is something that I personally think about a lot. And thanks at all you do, Linda, for supporting new gardeners as well. I'd love to hear some thoughts about the vision for our local food system. Alex, are you still there? Do you want to?
I'm here, but the video, it's not letting me start my video. It says because the host has stopped it. So I'm not sure, but you don't really need to see me. That's fine. But I can just give a little bit of an update. Yeah, I mean, from the city perspective, I would say that, oh, okay. It's asking me to start my video now. There we go. I would say that, yeah, there is a huge surge of interest in maintaining the programs that we're currently offering, but I think the more we can reduce barriers to people being able to meet their own needs, we've seen such a huge resurgence in interest in growing our own food. And really the city was reacting to that interest. It wasn't so much something that we were pulling along by any means. So I think for us, land space for people to grow food is still a huge barrier. And the city is working in various ways. There was a motion that at council that was discussed. I haven't yet received direction on how to act, but I know there is discussion happening that someone had mentioned in the chat as well, how to support subsidized housing organizations to work with the city's planning team in order to reduce barriers. We have no permits for boulevard gardening, so anyone can garden on their boulevard. You just need permission from the adjacent homeowner, and you have to call BC1 before you dig. But otherwise, they're the Boulevard Garden guidelines that you can follow. So really creating resources and opportunities for people to be able to access space, materials. We also did a distribution of excess garden materials, compost and leaf mulch to 4 different neighborhoods. That was a huge success. It sold out in 48 hours. So we're definitely going to be offering that again. So we're really just responding to the need. And so the more people can voice that need and what they need and working together collaboratively, I think we're very interested and eager to respond. I think another thing, we've been working with the Urban Food Table. They're a subcommittee that sits to council, and they've been really helpful and informative in helping to steer the direction of the vision of food systems within the city. And so we have some urban food targets. We'd like to see community gardens in every neighborhood, allotment gardens in every neighborhood, commons and orchards in every neighborhood. We'd like to see boulevard gardens in every neighborhood. We'd like to start mapping out some more information about what people are growing on balconies. And I think someone had mentioned too, we'd like to see some videos or images of the success of these projects. And I completely agree. I think it's important that we're sharing this information as we go along. So yeah, the vision of our food system is the collective of what we make it, and I hope to again just respond in a timely manner as the food systems coordinator to meet those needs as best as we can.
Is it my turn to talk again? So in terms of vision for the future for our local food systems, if there's a way to promote more Indigenous foods in every garden, in every community garden, on every farm, I believe that's a necessity. Solitary bees are the bees that are indigenous to Turtle Island. Like literally 5 to 10 minutes. Come on, you're almost done. Ask your brother if you need help. I think somebody else should answer. If they can. I gotta pour some blueberries, so.
Okay. I'll jump back in because I have to say my daughter just left the room too, so all quiet here now. I want to say thank you so much to our speakers for answering that question and looking to the future of how to sustain this interest and eagerness around growing. As well as I wanted to say thank you to everyone who put some really great comments in the chat section. I do recognize as well that there were quite a few questions that came through for Linda. I don't think we'll have time to get to all of those today. However, we will try and get answers to your questions and post those answers with along with the recording of this webinar. And we will also see if we can ask for Linda's slides to post as well. There was a lot of great information shared. And we can also record the chat and all of the wonderful comments that came through there. There was a lot, I know, around places to grow, and that's really important so that people can continue growing in a variety of ways and places, and having the resources to be able to do that. And there was also a lot around food literacy, and that now that people are on board and learning, that will only continue with this, with so much interest and with so many resources coming together under initiatives such as Growing Together, which is just wonderful. So I wanted to definitely say a huge thank you to all of our speakers. I see them all up there now. So Linda, all the great information that you shared, and Lisa with Growing Together, Alex and Tiffany, always good to hear from you both. So I just wanted to share one more. I just wanted to give you one last slide that here, just in case you do want further information. So I'll just leave that up as we're closing off today, and then maybe I'll ask if any of our speakers from today have any last closing words as we close off our webinar.
Now that I've served some blueberries, I just want to kind of finish what I was saying. I guess it kind of, my daughter kind of speaks to the importance of food systems anyway, with her wanting berries and things like that. So, yeah, as I was saying, like everybody's ideas are great about where we should be growing food. Ensure that Indigenous plants and foods are grown there, and remember that pollinators need habitat, and it's not just how useful we think everything is. Like, you can grow things that you don't have to eat. I think people kind of get caught up on, like, we need to have production everywhere, which ultimately isn't a very balanced system and a balanced way of looking at our relationship to the land. We can consider what we do for the land as opposed to what the land does for us. This ecosystem that we all reside in is the Garry Oak ecosystem, and it's been reduced down to 5% of what it was prior to colonization. And how this impacts Indigenous peoples is our health. If somebody wanted to grow wheat, lots of us are not very tolerant of wheat. If people wanted to have lots of cows, most of us are lactose intolerant. So growing the Indigenous foods supports the well-being of Indigenous people, supports the populations of pollinators, and keeps this ecosystem that we all love being able to grow in more balanced. And so consider balancing out annual plants with perennial plants whenever possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Tiffany. Linda,
Thank
any
you,
last
everybody.
words?
I just wanted to say it was fun. Let me know if I can help out with support seminars. That's kind of what I do best from up a mountain here on Salt Spring. I laughed because someone asked a question about, do these methods I mentioned apply in Comox? They totally apply in Comox and Courtenay and all the way to the top of the island and up the Sunshine Coast. There's people very heavily involved in all of this year-round harvesting, and you'll find them in your community. But if I can back up anything, let me know. I'm happy to do webinars to support all this amazing stuff you guys are doing.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay well. Get out in your garden.
Thank you.